Welcome back to the Vidnight Society. Today we're going to talk about the longest music video we've done so far. It's Blackstar by David Bowie.
Yes.
Now this is a fun little music video. You picked it, right?
I did. For anyone who doesn't know me that well, or for those of you who know us from home, I am a big Bowie fan.
Oh yeah.
Blackstar is the title track to the album. The album, obviously, Blackstar, and it was released in January 2016, and 2 days later, David Bowie passed away.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Bowie knew he was sick, he knew he was dying, and there's a lot of him dying of being aware of that in this song, and in the whole album.
So, I mean, given that this is kind of a heavy one, why did you want to do it on the Vidnight Society?
It's a sad song. It's a long video. It's 10 minutes exactly.
No one told them that YouTube removed that restriction, maybe?
I hadn't thought about that. And although it's very sad, it's about David Bowie dying and knowing that he's dying, there is a ton of information to disassemble, to unpack from this video. When I first saw this, a little while after David Bowie passed away, I was seeing pieces and pieces, and I knew, even after view number 1, that I'm gonna be rewatching this for years and years, and David Bowie fans are gonna be rewatching this for years and years because there's just a lot of information. And if you know David Bowie, you're gonna be guessing and second guessing all this crap for forever.
Now, having watched it recently, I didn't feel all that sad watching it. Partially because it's been a few years. David Bowie's just kind of up on the music history shelf now, and I was never that emotionally attached to him as an artist the way a lot of people are. So I was just kind of watching it as, this is what Bowie was up to in his later years, and he was still really pushing the artsiness and the dance and the costumes and everything. It is really interesting to see the David Bowie brand expressed as a swan song, and to see the aesthetics that were picked out to not only go with what he was always all about, but also as a kind of a desiccation and decomposition feeling to it.
It's almost like he's empty and frail and hollow. He definitely doesn't feel 100%. And the other single from the album, Lazarus,
yes,
which is literally about him dying. He's in a hospital bed. He's reaching out. He's like losing his energy. And it ends with him going into this like big cupboard thing, and he dies in the end. Which is somehow an even sadder song, is the other single on the album. No, you're right. He is operating at diminished capacity.
He's also old. If he was still alive, I'd watch it and think like, oh yeah, he was never a big like gymnastic guy, really.
Believe it or funny, did you know, Neil, fun fact for the audience, David Bowie, he was never an acrobat, but he did do a lot of physical,
right?
He was a mime, that's right. And he not only was he a mime, and he did mime work and incorporating miming into his stage performances, he also spent a lot of time studying kabuki theater from Japan. A very rich, detailed, unbelievably dense body of theatrical work that I will never, ever completely I could spend a lifetime studying kabuki theater, and I would still not get it all. I'm sure Bowie may have spent like 2 weeks studying kabuki. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing about being so eclectic. I always hate the term musical chameleon, and I think Bowie hated it too. People call David Bowie a musical chameleon, which implies that he just went with whatever the new chameleons change their skin to fit their environment. Bowie just did what he wanted to do. And I think back to a thing I read back in the 90s in which they talked to him about, hey, you must really like Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson kind of looks like Ziggy Stardust with the pale skin and no eyebrows, and you must be a Manson fan. And he said, no, these days I'm listening to Trent Reznor. Actually, I'm gonna work with Trent Reznor.
Marilyn Manson was like, come on, man.
I bet he likes Manson just fine.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. We open with, it appears to be a planet, a foreign planet, sort of a George Méliès, Man on the Moon type of like old silent film set.
Let's call it Planet Bowie.
Let's call it, Planet Bowie. So on Planet Bowie, there is a dead astronaut. We see the skull inside of the cracked, what is it called? Help me out. The visor, the face of the helmet. And it is a bejeweled skull. I don't know why. I don't know what that means.
I think it's a reference to the end of the movie Space Cowboys, where Tommy Lee Jones, I believe, dies on the moon. They leave him there and he dies on the moon.
Really?
That's how that movie ends.
Believe it or
I
not.
don't think it's actually a reference. I'm joking.
I was gonna say, if you go looking through old pulp magazines and weird fiction and weird horror, old HP, stuff from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, there's a lot of imagery of skeletons, bodies, and astronaut suits. There's a lot of dead astronaut imagery that David Bowie definitely grew up with long before he wrote. And for those of you who don't know this one, Space Oddity. David Bowie's first big hit was Space Oddity, a play on words of Space Odyssey.
Which had just come out.
Right.
And I think he may have seen. I think it might have influenced him a little bit. I did like that there's it has a title. It's just a black star with more black stars underneath it. That's the title of the album, that's the title of the song. But it feels like a rap video. You know how like sometimes they have like the title splash screen at the beginning of the...
I hadn't thought of it like that, but I like that. Yeah, you're right.
It's a cool, it's a 10-minute video. It's okay to dress it up a little bit. So from there, there's a girl shows up and she checks out the skeleton. She's got a tail.
She has a tail.
Do you think it's cat people?
I do think it's cat people.
I haven't seen the movie, and I don't know how that song goes, but David Bowie did a song Cat People, right?
He did the song Cat People for the film Cat People, and here's where we start to go down the Bowie hole. And one could, like I said, interpret this in all kinds of crazy ways. It's an animal tail. It's feline. It's not a dog, it's a cat. It's not Diamond Dogs, it's cat. He did a song called Cat People, parentheses, putting out fire with gasoline, which was used delightfully in the scene when they set up, before they kill all the Nazis in Inglourious Bastards. The only Bowie song used by Quentin Tarantino.
With gasoline.
Cat People is starring, the 1982 film, is starring an actress I'm unfamiliar with, and Malcolm McDowell. Now, Malcolm...
Is that Natasha Kinski, maybe, or something?
I think you're right. And where would we know her from? Because
She's the daughter of Klaus Kinski.
Really?
I believe so.
That's
she was in a lot of
crazy.
schlocky shit, so...
Malcolm McDowell, who everyone knows from A Clockwork Orange, of which David Bowie was a huge fan.
The Nexus.
And The Nexus, yes. The film Cat People was directed by a guy named Paul Schrader. He wrote 4 movies, co-wrote them with Martin Scorsese. Taxi.
Driver.
Thank you. Taxi Driver, not Taxi. And one of the 4 was The Last Temptation of Christ, in which Willem Dafoe plays Jesus and David Bowie plays Pontius Pilate from the beginning. Dead, bejeweled astronaut, cat girl, and we see the first of this wide set that looks a lot like the Labyrinth in Labyrinth.
Oh, okay. Most of this takes place is he in an attic next? Is that where he is?
Yes.
He's got the bandages and he's got the buttons. And he looks like I think a David McKean drawing from like Coraline or something.
Yes, exactly. He's bandaging his eyes for some reason and trying to like feel around with his hands. The buttons, that's a reference to, I've no idea. I don't know. I've looked it up a lot. I did a lot of homework for this video. I don't have a clue. The only thing I could think of, the only thing I got to that was even close to an answer was, it kind of looks like a teddy bear. And I went, that doesn't help.
No.
That doesn't help at all.
I mean, it is possible Bowie liked Coraline, you know?
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time up in this spooky attic. Yes. Bowie's there, he's doing his thing, he can't see. Yep. And he's got 3 weird dancers. I'd call them weirdos, perhaps.
I don't think they're references to specific people in his life, the 2 men and the woman, but they do a couple of weird little dances. One is the guy does like a full body shake.
There's a lot of jiggle dances.
And that dance, along with the thing that almost looks like cat claws, again, cat people, those are both dances specifically in the music video for Fashion. And you can go note for note and go back and forth between, when I first saw the video, I went, I know that dance from another David Bowie music video.
Maybe he felt like, well, the jiggle dance didn't really take off the first time, so we're gonna try it again.
That's very clearly from another Bowie video.
Okay, well, I was gonna bring up how watching this, I did not feel like it was chock full of references, which a lot of artists, especially, towards the end of their career, will start to do videos that are just kind of, hey, remember this and remember this? I kind of felt like, oh, we'd see the Ziggy Stardust like face at some point in this, but that never happens. I felt like all the imagery was like pretty fresh and new.
I found it really interesting that, like I said before, David Bowie played Pontius Pilate in The Last Temptation of Christ. And we see 3 scarecrows in a cornfield. Is it some version of the Hill of Golgotha and they're all writhing about?
I did really like these spooky scarecrows.
The spooky scarecrows.
I thought they looked great. But we're getting a little bit ahead because there is kind of like a middle section to this 10-minute video where the music changes and it starts to sound a little bit more like your traditional Bowie. He's crooning, he's vamping, he's doing all sorts of moves. He doesn't feel quite as old in the middle of the video.
It's like he had one last, like, a little bit of oomph, a second wind.
Yeah, he's having some fun.
Those verses there end with him saying, "I'm the great I am." There's a Greek translation and another translation from Hebrew of the Old Testament, like Dead Sea Scroll stuff, where when God, Yahweh, first talks to Abraham, makes Abram into Abraham, he explains himself. The old school God is written in a way to say, I am, is a really weird, I'm sure there's plenty of biblical scholars who could clarify this much better from the early translation, but he's making a very specific reference here to, this is a religious reference, specifically monotheistic Judeo-Christian, yeah.
I thought it was a Will.i.am reference.
Something happened on the day he died.
Well, I watched it when it came out, and I watched it again today. I actually thought it goes by a little quicker than you think for a 10-minute video. It's pretty captivating, but my notes, I really only have a few notes because I feel like if you're not thinking about all the esoteric references, it's a fairly straightforward music video. It operates on music video logic, which is, does it look cool? All right, cool. And it totally succeeds on that level. I really do like the imagery. I like the characters and the costumes and stuff, and this is something that Bowie's always had as a strength. We get to the Spooky Scarecrows. They start being attacked by a strange monster who shows up in the very last minute, almost at the 9-minute mark. It looks kind of like a shaggier old Greg maybe, or something like that.
I also thought of old Greg between the tentacles, if you will, or it's almost like it's made out of old dirty mops.
Maybe,
like
or
old
maybe
Greg.
just like very big dreadlocks or something, but you can't see a face.
I think the weird mishmash nonsense monster at the end is supposed to be a tumor. I think it's cancer. And in the end, the weird tumor monster, the cancer monster, unfortunately kills him. It gets him.
No, that makes a ton of sense to me. But it is also a really cool monster.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, that woke me up. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Towards the end of the video, there's a circle of light in what appears to be maybe the desert or some sandy place, and a coven, if you will, of
Cults, maybe?
Yeah, of shoeless women who do a lot of like shaking dances
They do the
and
Twitch
ritual
dance,
thing.
yeah.
Not a goddamn clue with that. I don't. Is it his ex-girlfriends? Is it his ex-wives? Is it his self-judgment?
Well, like I said, you can always fall back on its music video logic, and it looks good. It's captivating. And
Captivating, if you will.
Yes, okay.
The video does not have a cohesive beginning, middle, end. It just kind of fades into darkness. David Bowie connected with so many different artists and is part of so many parts of pop culture. The 6 degrees of separation for him could go on forever.
True.
Blackstar is also going to be a stage play. David Bowie wrote the album knowing that he wanted it to be on Broadway. The first song that I heard from this album Blackstar, before I saw this video, was the song Lazarus. And Lazarus was performed on Stephen Colbert by another guy, awesome possum, Michael C. Hall. Michael C. Hall was playing the lead during the production of the show, and Michael C. Hall is doing a Bowie, a very Bowie type, the way he moves, the way he sings.
Look up here, I'm in heaven.
And my first thought was, oh, it doesn't matter if it's really David Bowie or an actor, because we all know what Bowie is. When David Bowie first came from England to America, it wasn't like the Beatles. There weren't a whole big crowd of people. He was kind of, whatever. He spoke with his people, his team, the band and his manager and everyone, like, who do you want to meet in America? And he said, I want to see Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground. And he went to New York City and went to a dirty old club and he saw the Velvet Underground play, and it was awesome. And the next day he realized, I think he read it in a newspaper or he talked to people, that wasn't really the Velvet Underground. That was just another band where the singer looked like Lou Reed and they played Velvet Underground songs. What he took away from that was, it doesn't matter if it was actually Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground, because it felt like a Velvet Underground show to me. The experience was authentic, whether they were real people or not, and that was the first spark for him to come up with the Ziggy Stardust character of, it doesn't matter if Ziggy Stardust is real or not, if the show feels like Ziggy Stardust. If I sell this character enough, it'll become real. And the kids will go, it wasn't a David Bowie show, it was Ziggy Stardust.
I think that might actually be the reason why he's wearing the buttons and the bandage, is because it's just a convenient mask. You put it on, half your face is still there. That's enough Bowie just to let you know that Bowie's under there, but you put that mask on someone else, then it's effectively the same look. Did you watch it the day it came out?
Yes.
When you watched it, did you get the feeling that he was on his way out?
I didn't know how sick he was. I'm embarrassed to admit, as a David Bowie fan, I didn't even know he was sick.
Wasn't it a secret?
He was very private in the last couple of years, and he didn't make many public appearances other than going to his son's premiere for the movie Moon with Sam Rockwell. Other than that, he'd been kind of private, and he didn't tell a lot of people about his illness. He actually, of the studio musicians and the people who worked on the album and the song with them, he asked them not to share that information, and they all kept his confidentiality. They didn't.
Yeah, from my memory, it was a surprise that he just, he died very suddenly, as far as the public was concerned.
Yep.
And that may have been when I heard about the video. It kind of elevated the videos. A great PR move, I guess, not intentionally, but maybe it was on some level. But I think he probably knew that this is the swan song, and when I go, people are going to see this. This is going to be the first thing that they check out.
I would say that might be my big takeaway, is he knew he was going to die. The video is about him dying and knowing he's going to die, and knowing that I'm going to leave you with a mystery. I'm not giving you answers. And I would say that's what the video is really about. He never gave up. He kept working, he kept giving. He gave more to us when he may have lived longer and lived happier if he'd taken care of himself. I don't know, but I do know that he ended his life giving us one more show. And that's a pretty awesome, selfless thing to do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our review of Blackstar.
Yeah, and just for the hell of it, if you had to recommend a palate cleanser, if this video brings you down, what from David Bowie's music video catalog would you recommend watching right afterwards?
Excellent question, because the real life answer, the next video I watched of David Bowie's was Love You Till Tuesday, one of his earliest works. It's silly, it's lighthearted.
Who's that hiding in the apple tree, clinging to a branch?
So that, again, ladies and gentlemen, that was Blackstar. Our next review will be much less depressing.
Yes.
We look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments section. Check us out at guaranteedvideo.com, and this has been the Vidnight Society.